and now working with Humanity Plus. And of course, at the Institute, we had discussion about branding and naming and stuff like that, and how much of it is a hindrance. Now, at the Immortality Institute, let me put this tough question to you the first time. You did support keeping the name Immortality Institute when that issue came up last summer. Now, you are going with different branding as executive director of the WTA. I know it's part of the job, but is there any difference in philosophy there between keeping Immortality Institute just Immortality Institute and changing WTA to Humanity Plus?
So I was originally supportive of making sure that transhumanism, that word, that idea, is prominent going into the future. But as I've been exploring transhumanism with my own work, I have a couple local clubs, one in Tucson and one in Phoenix, that I advise, and just kind of getting a sense of how people approach transhumanism, what brings them to the meeting or keeps them away. I began to understand that that word is problematic for some people. And so I think that I moderated my view, especially when it comes to transhumanism. And also, you know, a lot of this effort went on before I arrived at WTA Humanity Plus.
Right.
And so I'm here to kind of finish it up and get the website launched and see what we can do with this new branding.
Okay, I see, yeah. And I was wondering, other than the magazine and the rebranding with the website, what other, can you list a couple of other things that you might have in mind for 2009 for Humanity Plus?
Yes, one of my own passions has been trying to create a Humanity Plus chapters program. There was previously the Transhumanist Student Network that provided an affiliation for transhumanist and other futurist clubs. And so we would like to run with that idea, merge some of my own ideas with H+, and see what we can do, see if we can spread this even further. There's a lot of interest in emerging technologies, specific technologies that kind of come under an umbrella maybe of transhumanism. And so if we can come up with a nice way for clubs to be created and to affiliate and to share content and to share speakers, we hope to begin to educate the public and students about these ideas.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about that as well myself, about educating the general public about different things as far, you know, futuristic kind of technologies, things like that coming up. And, you know, I've noticed the last couple of years, more and more people are talking about the singularity, and it's becoming more mainstream. I don't know if transhumanism ever hit the mainstream so much, but you know, it obviously is still a pertinent term, and immortality as well. And I was wondering, let me formulate my question from my old brain, as I mentioned, my 38-year-old brain here that I mentioned earlier.
I'm not far behind you.
Yeah, not too far behind me. You know, I was just thinking about how soon before you think that we're going to see an outbreak, more momentum. You know, the Immortality Institute has been around for 7 years now as a nonprofit organization, and WTA even longer. As far as those two memes go, let's say, or those two in terminology, how much longer do you think before they become more mainstream acceptance? In my view, it seems as though we've got a lot of change going on around the world. I mean, it's happening very rapidly, and I can't see that so much of society holding back and not at least discussing, you know, how technology is going to be changing human beings and how our lifespans are going to be changing, or at least the potential of that in the near future. I mean, do you see that trend as well, that there's a growing acceptance of some of these, what, you know, people behind the scenes have been talking about for many years, you know, these futurist memes?
There is a growing discussion of these topics, but I think what has happened is those who embraced the ideas to begin with had no trouble embracing some ideas that were perhaps really science fiction-y. We're talking 50 to 60 to 100 years from now. What we're seeing now is, as a more mainstream audience is beginning to come and see these ideas, they're a little bit more interested in what this means in the next few years. They're interested in what do these technologies mean for their families and their communities in just the next few years. And further tread lines, the longer term scenarios are a little bit less interesting to them. And so I think we need to tailor our message to this more mainstream audience. We already have the geeks. We already have the techies. We already have the nerds and the science fiction fanboys. Now it's time to take that message and tailor it for an even wider audience without losing the audiences that we already have. We don't want to alienate them at all.
Yeah, I hear you there. It is a tough, it is a difficult balancing act, I guess. I see a lot of new things out there as far as technology goes, especially medical technology, that is wonderful. I mean, could help, thousands and thousands of people. I mean, everything from cochlear implants to artificial organs and all of this. And I guess I see what you're saying as far as mentioning the things that can benefit people immediately or in the very near term without asking them to contemplate what might happen 10 or 20 years from now. That is a general.
And eventually they will contemplate those ideas. I think the idea is to bring people in, to introduce them to some of these concepts that they haven't thought about before, and then eventually well, of course, as we get closer to these eras, they'll begin to explore some of these more difficult concepts more thoroughly.
Okay, I see we have a good question here, one that perennially comes up for all people related to WTA and now Humanity Plus. What about political activism? Does Humanity Plus plan to engage in any political activism?
I think that politics is unavoidable, no matter what your intentions are. Humanity Plus will probably attempt to be inclusive, so we're going to try not to take political stances. I think the political stances we'll take will try to be very basic, get to the very roots of what the transhumanist philosophy is about. I mean, we love technology. We think technology and science can provide solutions to problems without necessarily leaping to a post-human future and some of these other things. Transhumanism, as you mentioned before, perhaps it hasn't quite reached mainstream, but it has reached a particular maturity, and that's a maturity that all social movements go through. It's a period when the movement begins to fracture along political lines. So yes, we all agree about certain things, but then we start to think about our own personal politics and say, now I want transhumanism to do that for me. And someone else says, no, I want transhumanism to do this for me. And we're seeing that. It's not a negative thing. A social movement has to go through that period. But we're at that stage now, and we need to recognize that there are a variety of political views, even though we're all under this umbrella called transhumanism.
Yeah, back to a little point here about the branding again. Now, I thought I had read in your PDF of the bill presentation you gave that it was going to be capital H plus for the entire organization, the umbrella organization, and then small case H plus. Is that how you're going to brand the local university or small groups?
Not necessarily. No. I think that's something that we can explore, but Humanity Plus, that nice new logo that we have, is kind of the full name. Then we're working on just a little H and a plus that would be a quick little icon that you can put everywhere. I think we'll continue to spell out things as Humanity Plus chapters or Humanity Plus activities, but then there are a variety of ways that you can abbreviate that.
I see. Okay. Now, I just mentioned also that you were at the Build conference recently, and you gave a presentation about Humanity Plus. What other exciting things did you see at the Build conference, or what other presentations? Who did you listen to, and what stuck with you?
Well, Aubrey de Grey was there, of course.
He was.
So he gave an excellent talk as usual.
Okay.
It was actually a new talk. He talked a little bit of, he gave a